Hey folks, good morning and welcome to another episode of Steelers Morning Rush. I'm Alan Saunders. It is Wednesday, August 20th. Pittsburgh Steelers are off today. They are flying to Charlotte for their final preseason game against the Carolina Panthers tomorrow night. I will be joining them there with Ed Thompson from Steelers Now. We're leaving a little bit later than them, but we're driving, so we'll get there a lot later than them. And we'll have some coverage from Charlotte tomorrow. Today I want to talk about the decision by Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin to not dress quarterback Aaron Rodgers in the preseason. It was announced yesterday that Rodgers will not play against Carolina. He didn't play in either of the first two games, and that means that this will be the first time in Mike Tomlin's career that he will make the choice to not play his starting quarterback at all in the preseason, all the way through Ben Roethlisberger's career, with the exception of 2020 when there was no preseason. He was a preseason participant, not always very often. In fact, sometimes relatively few snaps during the preseason, but always at least got out there. And outside of some contract holdouts and some injury issues over the years, that's been the way that Mike Tomlin has done business. Yeah, you have years like last year when Cam Hayward was holding out and didn't have a contract. TJ Watt in 2022, same thing, right? And so 2021. There have been years where guys individually, obviously injuries, didn't take preseason snaps, but never like this. Never the coach just saying, you know what, I don't want to see it. I don't need to see it. It's fine. And so that's a big change for Mike Tomlin. I also think it's a wise one. Let's talk about the whys, the benefits, the cost, and that type of thing. Yes, Mike Tomlin has never done this before. Also, Mike Tomlin has never had a 41-year-old starting quarterback who's a 21-year vet, has had injury problems the last two seasons, and whose entire season rides on finding a way to stay healthy. There's a lot of risk in putting Aaron Rodgers out there for a preseason game where the other team is not going to play its starters anyway. And so you're basically trusting Aaron Rodgers' season and the Steelers' season on the willingness of some guy who's about to get cut from the Carolina Panthers of not taking a cheap shot in a game. Like that's what you need. And that's a risk. Also, look, Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu have looked good so far this preseason. There are also going to be mistakes. And in the regular season, of course, those risks are going to be real. I find it unlikely that the Steelers are going to get through the season without Aaron Rodgers getting banged up at least a little bit one time. But what is the benefit of going out there for one or two drives in the preseason compared to that potential for negativity? And, I talked to Mike Tomlin about this yesterday, and I asked him, how much does the joint practice that the team had with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers factor into the decision of whether or not to play guys? And he said, look, that's quality work. That's starter versus starter, but it's in a controlled environment. No one's going to hit the quarterback. There's not going to be any cheap shots. It's a practice, but it's also good versus good. Aaron Rodgers faced the starting Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary for roughly 30 snaps last Thursday. That's more snaps than Ben Roethlisberger had in a preseason under Mike Tomlin since, I think, 2015. So, and the Steelers infrequently held joint practices under Tomlin in the past. I think they had one in 16 and one in 14, but they weren't necessarily the big deal that they have become. Around the league, the trend has been over the last 5 years, 10 years, play starters less and less and less. There are some coaches that will not play a single starter one snap all preseason. Sean McVay, very notoriously, never plays the starters. Matt Stafford hasn't played in a preseason game in 6 years. Joe Burrow got his first preseason reps this year, outside of, I think, his rookie season. So there's... And the less other teams are playing their starters, the less benefit there is to playing in the preseason, right? The whole point of the preseason is to get ready for the season. Playing against some backups isn't getting anyone ready. And so the fewer coaches play players in the preseason, the less benefit you get out of playing in the preseason, then the fewer coaches play players in the preseason. It is a vicious cycle, right? And so what is happening is these joint practices, which used to be sort of a sideshow where there'd be like a million fights and, it was just a toughness competition and that was kind of it. They have now replaced the preseason game in NFL circles as the primary method of getting your starting players ready for the season. And when the league eventually goes to 18-2, which is coming in the next 5 years, 100%, you will basically not see any starters play more than 1 or 2 series in a preseason game. And every team will have probably more than one joint practice where that's where the starters will get their work. That's the direction we're going. And I've frequently critical of Mike Tomlin's decisions here. We talked yesterday in the afternoon drive about how the whole world was freaking out when TJ Watt got hurt in the preseason against the Detroit Lions a few years ago, got cut blocked by TJ Hawkinson. There's all this, it's a dirty block. And then, of course, TJ went out and tore his pec in week 1. And so that knee injury that he ended up having to have surgery on ended up sort of being forgotten about. But everyone was furious with Mike Tomlin that TJ Watt was out there. I think Tomlin's been behind the curve on this issue and is now catching up with the rest of the league in terms of understanding the risk reward of playing in the preseason. I still think for certain positions, offensive and defensive line, primarily, there's still a lot of benefit of getting yourself physically acclimated against different opposition than the ones you're facing in practice every day. And those positions are probably at the least risk of injury in a preseason game. But quarterback, I mean, that to me, that like no team should be playing their starting quarterback much in the preseason unless they're not sure who it is, or it's a rookie maybe. That's the thing, because there's just the what happens if a player gets hurt compared to the potential reward facing a bunch of backups in the preseason doesn't really play out. And of course, wide receiver and cornerback, we've been evaluating the wide receivers and cornerbacks since April. I mean, they have hundreds and hundreds of reps because their job isn't any different with or without pads. So they really don't need the work at this point of the year. It would not surprise me if in the next 20 years we see the preseason go away altogether, or it becomes solely a thing where it is for the third and fourth string players that are trying to make the roster and no one plays anyone who you've ever heard of. It is just guys, whole games full of guys who are probably going to get cut and maybe 1 or 2 will make it. That is where we're heading with the preseason, because if you care about a guy, you don't want him to get hurt. And that's the way it works. So I think Mike Tomlin deserves some credit for this decision. I also don't think, as I said yesterday, Jalen Ramsey or Darius Slay is going to end up playing. Wouldn't surprise me if Patrick Queen and Deshaun Elliott, Joey Porter, Pat Freiermuth, Jalen Warren, those guys do suit up, but I think those older veterans will end up getting this day off, even though Mike Tomlin hasn't officially announced them out. But yeah, this is a good decision, and there is no risk-reward benefit formula that you could put in factoring in Aaron Rodgers' preseason injury into what they could possibly get out of him being out there for those snaps. That's all I got for this morning. More on the afternoon drive. Me and Smitty, 6 o'clock. Head over to SteelersNow.com. Got a bunch of stories coming out, including a column on this topic. Also working on a big story on the offensive line, which I'm done gathering for. So hopefully I'm going to get that out today. If not today, definitely tomorrow morning. DB's got a story previewing the Carolina Panthers preseason game. Some Steelers to watch in that one. And all kinds of other content, of course, as always, at SteelersNow.com. Sign up for SN Plus and get access to our subscribers-only live stream, which is coming up on Monday as we preview the cut-down day. Me, Smitty, DB, probably more of the rest of the team, 6 o'clock next Monday. So you're going to want to make sure you sign up for SN Plus to get that. Also have for SN Plus my Notes from the Road column coming up on Friday. All right, that's all I got for this morning. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and enjoy.